Hello and welcome to my little airbrushing tutorial. It's part 3 already. Look at us go. Okay, so today we're gonna look into loading up that airbrush with a little bit of paint and trying to spray some kind of pattern onto a blank canvas, whatever that may be. I will try to take you through a little step-by-step journey of how I started, and yeah, just show you basically what airbrushing is all about today. We've covered already some basics of this, and again, this is very basic tutorial of how to even use that airbrush of yours. So if you experience even intermediate airbrush artist, you're not watching this, why would you? So there you go, guys. Open a beer, that's very important. Open a beer, have it ready, and let's get started. Cheers. Yeah. Right, so first things first. I've got your typical airbrush. The one I'm using is a dual action. We discussed this before. It's a gravity fed dual action airbrush. I've got it connected to my air supply, my air hose, which is going to the compressor. We're going to power it on in a minute. But this is one of the very first things I discovered when I got my first airbrush. You need an airbrush holder. Simple, right? Well, it wasn't obvious for me when I first started. So when I got my airbrush, I loaded up with paint and I'm trying to spray some kind of things, you know, happening there. And then obviously you need to reload, you need to clean your hands because you messed up, you need to readjust things. And what do you do with this? You can't just put it down on it like this. It ain't gonna happen because you got your cup full of paint over here. So what I end up using at first, which probably wasn't the best thing, but it, you know, you use whatever you got. I had my vise right over here, so I open the vise a little bit, so the hose and the connection goes right in the hole, and I was keeping it like that for at least probably a week or 10 days before I get an airbrush holder. And even though I didn't bought my airbrush holder, I made it myself. It's over here. There we go. I made this thing myself. Basically what it is, it's a massive lump of steel underneath, so it's solid and heavy. You can't really knock it off that easily. There's another little piece of steel going from here. I welded that to the top. I got like 2 double T-bars going on top, and I got some nuts welded on top of it. So basically that acts like my airbrush holder, like this. I can one airbrush over here. If I need to, I can put over here. But it's designed for 2 airbrushes really, so I can place it this way. I understand and I'm aware that it's not ideal and it's not professional. You can probably get a professional airbrush holder for like £20 or even less than this. Obviously prices may vary, but I like making things and I made this myself, you know, and I'm happy with that. You've been serving me a while. It's beef, it's massive, it's solid. I never knocked it over, even if I touch it like this. It always stays where it's supposed to stay. Now, I'm not encouraging you to make your own. You can buy one. I'm just, lots of people ask me for that. But there you go, I made it myself. And I keep my little magnets over here as well. We get to that later. And double up as a weapon as well, I guess, if somebody break in. It's pretty heavy. Right, so you need an airbrush stand, that's the point. You need an airbrush stand. Without this, your life is going to be rather difficult. Okay guys, let's move on. Right, I'm going to take you off the tripod for a little bit, show you what's happening here. So I got my airbrush and my homemade airbrush holder. An air supply is connected, excuse the mess, it's connected to the reducer on the air of the compressor. I've got it set up the way I want to, and we need to plug in this compressor right now. Well, this bad boy is probably way more powerful than you ever need for running a little airbrush like this, but I use it for some other things as well in my workshop, so I'm happy to have that. I don't mind the noise it makes. Plug it in for now. If you work in a different environment than my garage workshop, which is kind of doubles up as a motorcycle workshop and things I do over here, the benefit of this thing is it makes a lot of noise for a short period of time, and then I can airbrush for about half an hour to 40 minutes, depends on the PSI I've got and well, how often I release the air from that little gun. But it lasts for about half an hour, and then it switches itself on for another minute or 2, probably even less than this, makes some noise, and then it just switches off again, and it holds that air in this tank over there. So yeah, I'm gonna switch it on and you kind of understand what kind of noise level that is. as we discussed this before, compressors are a different story on its own. I'm using this. If it breaks, I throw it away. It's been with me for like 4 years now. If it breaks, I throw it away, get a new one. You know, it costs me 100 quid. 100 quid every 4 or 5 years. Not the end of the world, I think. But I'm hoping it's going to last for a little bit longer than that. Well, anyway, this is what kind of noise I need to cope with when I'm getting ready to airbrushing. So here we go. Sure you can hear me, but it's not that bad. I mean, it's probably when I put you closer to it, it's kind of annoying, but it doesn't last forever. It takes about 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and the thing is fully loaded. And there we go. This is fully loaded with compressed air right now. Altogether it took probably a minute, maybe 1 minute and a half, 90 seconds, something like this. And now it's good to supply air from my gun. If you press this button, there you go, the air comes from here. Hope you can hear it okay. Yeah, so the compressor choice is yours. I'm using this one, it works for me, no problem. Right, let's load it up with some paint and I'll show you some things we can do with this thing. Right, so we got this stuff covered now. What we need to do now is load our gun, our airbrush, with paint. This little cap over here, doesn't matter how your airbrush look like, if you have dual action or top gravity fed airbrush, it's going to be very much like that, and the principle behind it, as we know from before, it's very much the same. So what we've got here, I've got water-based paint and reducer to serve that paint. Yes, you can use different things to reduce it. You can probably use water with some soap and some other components, but if you're just starting, I recommend you to use the product that is designed to reduce that kind of paint, simply for the simplicity and the benefit of everything you're going to do in the next few steps. So I've got a blue water-based paint. Why blue? Because it was the first bottle right over there. You can use any color you want. That is opaque paint. There are two kinds of paint. There's opaque and transparent. We're gonna get to that in a completely different story as well. But this particular one is by Wicked Colors. You can get any brand you want. I mean, these guys are really good at what they do. They didn't pay me to say that. I say that because I believe these guys are really good at what they do. Simple as that. And I've got 4012 high performance reducer designed for this particular brand of water-based colors, and I'm guessing some other water-based colors as well. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna mix it up really well. Make sure it's all nicely mixed up. There's a little ball inside that helps you, just like a rattle can, that helps you mix it up, especially it's been standing for a while. This has been standing for a good couple of months. I want to give it a good shake. And now it comes to consistency of paint, and that is another level of knowledge. But let me quickly throw a few shortcuts what to look for. Right, so when it comes to consistency of paint, it's a subject that you will spend hours and hours and hours of researching. You will spend hours of looking into it over the internet, on YouTube, of any other sources you can find. How do I know? Because I've done it myself. But the simple answer is you really need to get in there and practice it yourself. And in a matter of not even weeks, you know, if you do it, you know, often enough, a matter of days, you will develop that sense. You know, you look at the paint in this little paint cup and you will know whether it's reduced properly or you need to more reducer, or if it's over reduced. But there's no one rule of thumb. There's so many different applications. Depends what is your medium, what are you airbrushing on, how big is your nozzle, how much air pressure you pushing through, and whether you are brushing on a t-shirt on metal or automotive stuff, what kind of paint you're using, what is the humidity, where is the sun in the air. There are so many different factors. You just need to get in there, get your fingers dirty and explore it. There's no two ways around it. You just need to practice that shit, and that is how it is. Well, no, that's probably not the answer we're expecting, but that is exactly what it is. Get in there and practice that shit, and soon enough you find the best settings for you and what works for you and what doesn't. In a few more episodes we probably get to discuss the common problems and common mistakes that are related to paint consistency, whether it's too thick or too thin, if it's spitting out or not. We can discuss that later, how to correct it and how to prevent it, so when you are brushing on the job you don't mess it up. But the way I like to think about it, somebody said once, the paint consistency in general obviously should be like consistency of milk. It's not water, it's not quite watery, and it's definitely not thick, because that's just not gonna work. But milk is kind of in between, like full fat milk, you know. It's got, if you run it around the glass, it doesn't run down completely like water. It kind of stays around the glass and then it gently runs down, but it's still very liquid, and it's definitely not like a cream, you know, kind of thick, and it's not watery. It's kind of in between, but towards the watery part. It needs to be very thin to atomize finely through that airbrush. So again, different you know, adaptations to it. There's no rule like you put 10 drops of this to 1 drop of that and all the other way around. You just need to experiment, because I find by experience some colors got different pigments in it, and for example the ones I'm using, blacks, are a bit more thick than yellows for some reason. So there's always a way of finding out what works best for you. I'll show you now how to load it up and how to mix it in properly. There we go. That's my little airbrush, my little cup over there. You can probably see the needle as well inside. Yes, you can. As you can see, it's all exposed, so the paint's gonna go right there, and when I press the button I'm going to release the air and pull it back. The needle is moving back, so it's going to release the paint, atomize it through the nozzle over here. So what I like to do, my personal preference, is to load up some reducer first. I use the 4012 over here, and what I do, I basically put a few drops, depends on a job I'm doing, how big the nozzle is, how big my cup is, but I'm gonna just put a couple of drops into the bottom of that. 1, 2 and 3. There we go. 3 drops of reducer sits right in the bottom. The reason I put reducer first is the paint is usually much thicker than the reducer, and if I drop the paint right in the bottom over there, it's quite a complex design down there, and paint will usually stack around and reducer may not get right to the bottom of it, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult later on for me to actually mix it up. So this way I kind of make it easier, make life easier for myself. I put reducer first and I drop the paint on top of it. So I put, like, see how much thicker that stuff is. 1, 2, come on, 2 big drops. I put another one, why not? So I got 3 big drops over there, and 3 small drops of reducer. Let's see how well I can mix it up right now. Right, I have two ways of mixing the paint right in there. Whether I'm mixing the color, I'm mixing it with reducer. You can drop it right in there and you kind of can work it out what's the best way. If you work in a large project, you want to mix it somewhere on the side in a bigger container, so you just add in paint. But if you work on small details, this is just fine enough. I find that having a small paintbrush, it's an old paintbrush, nothing specific, soft bristles over here, I put it in there and I just gently mix it up. That makes, basically, it doesn't scratch any components inside. It's gentle enough for the inside of a cup. It don't damage the needle. You can see I'm just mixing it up gently inside the cup itself. I don't know if I can see it, but I'm pretty happy with that consistency over there. It's pretty milky. If you can spot that, it's pretty milky and it just stays there. I don't need much. Just want to show you a simple pattern how to do it. So that's one way I'll mix the paint, yeah. Right, and the other way I like to mix my paint, which you will probably often see in my previous videos, is when I add some paint or add some more reducer over here, right when I'm in it, and the paint or a reducer sits on top of the existing paint over there. what I do, I just block the exit of my, well, my nozzle basically, with my finger or with anything else. Finger really usually works very well, and leave just a little gap of air, and then press down for air and pull back for paint. That basically blocks the air coming out this way, and the air kind of goes back on itself and is trying to escape through the cup because it's all connected. And what it does, it creates like a bubbly effect, like you put a straw and blow it into your drink, into your water. It creates kinds of bubbles. So let's have a look how that works. So I'm blocking the air and pulling back on paint, and as you can see, it produces this kind of bubbly effect inside there. The more you pull back, obviously, the quicker the bubbles build up. And that basically tumbles the air inside that little cup and mixes it up internally from the inside. That's a really good quick trick, you know, if you want to add just a little bit more reducer or a little bit more paint or add extra different pigment. You can mix it up without any mess internally, just like that. And these bubbles are really good bubbles. I really like the look of them. If you've got one big bubble or just not enough, the paint consistency probably is not very good. But these kind of bubbles, I like them. So yeah, two most common ways I like to mix my paint in the airbrush. And there we go, guys. This is it for today. I don't want to stretch any further because the information just keeps popping in my head, and there's so many things I want to share with you, so many things I want to explain to you, but it's like the video would be like 5 hours long and nobody will ever fucking watch this. So we're gonna stop it over here. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. You got any comments or any specific questions about the subject, drop me a comment below. You got any criticisms as well, drop me a comment below. I'm very happy to hear from you. And until next time, thank you very much once again. Have a day, work hard, and see you very soon.